My ex suddenly called me, speaking carefully. "I'm pregnant." I was stunned for 10 seconds, then grinding my back teeth in anger. I managed to say, "Think about it again. Are you really pregnant?" My ex sounded scared by my reaction, voice trembling. "It's true, it's yours. Are you playing with me?" Unable to bear it any longer, I slammed the table and stood up. "Carter, you're a man. How the hell are you pregnant?" Without offering an explanation, Carter hastily ended the call, setting up a meeting in half an hour at our usual spot. With mixed feelings, I went by the floor-to-ceiling windows. I saw a familiar black Maserati pulling into the parking spot. Then Carter entered, pushing the door open. I was leaning against the sofa, cradling a drink. Looking up as he approached, he was dressed in a well-tailored black suit, tall and gracefully built, with an air of cool detachment. His eternally icy, the face was as expressionless as ever. His devilishly handsome looks drawing glances from several women nearby. I frowned at him, beginning to doubt the reality of the phone call. Surely this was a joke. Unless he had lost his mind, I couldn't believe those words had come from him. Perhaps it was someone's idea of a cruel joke. As I pondered this, Carter sat down opposite me. "What would you like to drink?" the server asked. "A glass of milk," Carter replied. He joked on my drink. "Milk?" The Carter knew was drinking milk in a bar. The server, glancing at my glass of alcohol with a hint of surprise, nodded, "Of course." "Sir, coming right up." Carter glanced at me. Then suddenly his expression softened, and he gently touched his stomach. "Drinking is bad for the baby." I went, "Drink." "Not anymore." It nearly choked on my drink again. Watching a man, Carter no less, touching his belly and talking about the baby's shield. My shock was immense, as if humanity had discovered a ninth wonder of the world. I stared at him, dumbfounded, for a full 5 seconds. "Stop joking, Carter." I slammed my glasses on the table, teeth clenched. "What are you up to?" Carter instinctively protected his belly, shrinking into a corners of the sofas like a frightened rabbits. "Scared of me? Don't be mean. It'll scare the baby." I was completely dumbfounded. These expressions, actions, and tones, could they really belong to the strong and hollow of Carter knew? I stared at him, slowly calming down, my mind racing. He didn't. Seems to be pretending. Even if he was, there was no reason for him to make such a ridiculous spectacle of himself. Could something have happened to him? This thought made my anger evaporate into thin air. I became worried, moving to sit beside him. Carter, protecting his belly, looked at me timidly, sensing I was just angry. He slowly moved closer. I reached out to check his forehead. It wasn't too hot, so his brain wasn't fried. Taking a deep breath, I asked him calmly, "Carter, why do you say you were pregnant?" Carter looked at me shyly, unbuttoned his suit jacket, then gently took my wrist, placing my hand on his stomach. "Look, my belly has gotten bigger. The baby is right here," he said blissfully. At that moment, my pupils dilated in shock. Carter's belly had indeed grown. He hurriedly began to unbutton his shirt. "This can't be happening. How is this possible? Be careful. We're still outside." Carter, blushing, pushed my hands away. "Carter," he called his name in anger after realizing the truth. "You think tying a small pillows to your stomach means you were pregnant?" "I am pregnant." Carter looked at me with a hurt expression, as if it were a scoundrel who had abandoned his wife and children. "If you don't want me and the children, just say so. Don't make excuses." I was dumbfounded again, pointing at his belly. You're saying this child is mine?" Carter nodded firmly, a mix of embarrassment and grieving vance in his posture. "I've only ever been with you. If it's not yours, then whose could it be?" At that moment, I felt as though a series of thunderbolts struck me, leaving me completely dumbfounded. Here I was, not even married yet, and I apparently had a child. Bearing by my ex-boyfriend small pillow, my world view crumbled and kept crumbling over those few minutes, leaving nothing but ruins. Carter, I looked at him with concern. Let's go to the hospital. We need to get your brain checked. And my heart, too. Carter instantly became defensive, protecting his belly as he retreated to a corner, watching me warily with eyes that turned red. I don't want to go to the hospital for an abortion. This is my child. Even if you don't want it, I'll never get rid of it. I'll raise it. What, stuff a pillow, add some cotton, and raise it into a big pillow? Is that what people do? I hesitated, pulling out my phone, debating whether to call the police or an ambulance. But then, a voice suddenly rang out. Madam, Mr. Carter is here. A lady elegantly dressed hurried over, finally catching her breath when she saw Carter. You scared me. I finally found you. Seeing her, I felt like I had seen a savior, hastily calling out, Auntie, you're finally here. This was Carter's mother, Nina, whom he had introduced to me once when we were dating. Nina glanced at her son, then took my hand, apologizing. I'm sorry. Karen, Carter has caused you trouble. It's nothing. I shook my head, lowering my voice to ask urgently, Auntie, why has Carter suddenly become like this? Nina sighed. He's a bit sick. My heart skipped a beat. Sick where? His brain, she revealed. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in the back seat of a car with Carter's mother, listening to her explain the reason for Carter's illness. He was fine yesterday. The problem started early this morning, she said. According to her, Carter seemed to have had a nightmare, falling off the bed and hitting his head. After that, he became different, insisting on stuffing pillows into his waist and claiming he needed Ed to find the children's mother to take responsibility. Nina was terrified and intended to take him to see the doctor immediately, but he managed to run off. I couldn't help but swallow hard, looking at Carter, who was now gently touching his stomach, radiating tranquility and tenderness, possibly communicating with the small pillow inside. How did you know he was coming to find me? I asked. Who else could the mother of Carter's child are but you? Nina retorted. I didn't respond, glancing at Carter again. It's Ahmed he hadn't told. His parents we had broken up. Carter and I had been together for over a year and had only recently broken up. I was the one who initiated it. The reason was simple. Carter was a workaholic. Our daily chat history goes as follows. Are you there? Busy with work? Finished yet? Done now in a meeting? Meeting over? Yes. Let's go then. I miss you so much, okay? Wait till I'm done with work. Why are you always busy with work? Too busy even for your girlfriend? Do you realize you haven't spent time with me for a long time? An angry emoji is attached. I'll spend time with you after work. Let's break up. Wait, let's talk about this later. Work first. And so, I blocked him. Besides, he was the epitome of a straight male cancer. Stubborn to the core. Aside from sending me money, he was less clued about everything else. For instance, while others painstakingly picked out birthday gifts for their girlfriends, he'd just hand me a card saying buy whatever you want with a limit of 5 million. Or while others take their girlfriends out for movies or amusement park visits over the weekend, he'd just say, where do you want to go? I've booked at the whole place. Have fun by yourself. If he knew I had menstrual cramps, instead of the thoughtful gestures of milk tea or warm patches, he'd silently transfer 99,999 to him with a note saying drink more hot water. Essentially, if it could be solved with money, he wouldn't bother using emotions. But I didn't want money. I wanted a normal relationship, at least with a human being, not a pile of cash. Even so, I could have overlooked all this. But the key issue was his prudishness. Forget about intimate moments. He wouldn't even let me touch or kiss him. Always allo of and celibate. The only time we got drunk, it ended in disaster. Better left unmentioned. After enduring air of his coldness, I returned all his money untouched and broke up with him. Yet, today brought this bizarre turn of events. Madam, we've arrived at the hospital. Carter's driver announced as he parked the car. Let's go. Nina backed me to a light. I glanced at her, then at Carter, closed my eyes, and pointed for a while, but still couldn't bring myself to tell the truth. I followed them out of the car. Carter, let's go see the doctor, Nina said. At the sight of the hospital signs, Carter instantly became defensive, clinging desperately to the car door, shaking his head vehemently. I went go to the hospital. I didn't want an abortion, he protested. Nina at a loss. Carter looked at me with deep fear in him. Sees it thought for a moment, then approached and took his hand, whispering replyingly, "Don't worry, we're not here for an abortion. We're going to the hospital to secure the pregnancy." Carter bit his lip, looking at me with a mixtures of hope and anticipation. Really? You Ray not lying to me? You Ray willing to keep our children? His words sounded so awkward, guilt illy meeting his hopeful gaze. I nodded, I'm sorry. Carter, we Ray actually here too. Check your head, my wonderful wife. I knew you wouldn't abandon me and our children. He immediately cheered up, cuddling next to me like a big happy dog, radiating contentment and satisfaction, as if he had a fluffy tail wagging behind him. I had never seen, nor could I have imagined. Carter's been coming like this. It took me a while to snap back to reality before heading to see the doctor at the hospital. Carter held my hand tightly the entire time, refusing to let me out of his sight. His sudden attention and dependency made me uncomfortable, but at the same time, I was happy. During our relationship, he was utterly indifferent towards emotions, to the point where it sees meds like nothing besides work existed in his life. Just then, a doctor called out, "Where are the relatives of Carter's patient?" The examination results are out. Nina and I exchanged glances and approached. The patient has suffered brain trauma, resulting in significant bruising. These bruises had impaired his cognitive functions and affected his intelligence, the doctor said, adjusting his glasses. Moreover, I suspect he was exposed to information about injuries before the pregnancy, which led him to believe he is pregnant. Nina, looking worried, paused before suddenly glancing at my stomach with a mix of shock and hope. "Karen, it couldn't be you, could it?" I went pale and hurriedly waved my hands. "No, Auntie, you're thinking too much," she sighed. And anxiously asked the doctor, "So how do we treat my son's condition?" The best approach right now is to go along with his beliefs. Do not repeat lie, stress the truth, as it could trigger him. Wait until the bruising slowly dissipates and he returns to normal, the doctor advised. A listened absent-minded lie, my gaze drifting to Carter, who was sitting quietly in the back, touching his stomach and waiting. When he saw me looking, he smiled at me foolishly, radiating happiness. Ted my gazed and looked at my own stomach, my heart pounding. Was it a coincidence, or was there really something bizarre happening? As I was lost in thought, Nina grabbed my hand. "Karen, since it's come to this, I'm entrusting Carter to your care for a while. You've seen it. He believes the child is yours and wants you to take responsibility." I hesitated, but Nina continued, "Don't worry. He's me only son. You one thing to worry about. living expenses, or medical bills. Just tell me if you have any troubles. Besides, you two are still in a relationship, right? You'd want Carter to recover soon as well. Looked back and forth between my stomach and Carter before finally nodding. Half an hour later, I brought me pregnant ex-boyfriend back home. I was still struggling to accept reality, sizing him up against the wall. AM CEO, standing at 1.85 meters, had suddenly become a male mother. It was utter lie absurd. Carter stood obedient lie, letting me observe him, and called me wife in a pleasing manner. His voice was already pleasant, deep and magnetic, making me feel warm and tingling all over, knowing he had never called me so affectionately before, always using my full name as if it were an employee rather than his girlfriend. I immediately stopped him. Don't call me that anymore. Carter looked hurt. Why? I answered, because we were not in that kind of relationships. He pressed on. Then how can we be in that kind of relationship? Considering his severe cognitive impairment, I patiently replied marriage, getting a certificate. Carter persisted. When will you marry me? Never. I grew impatient. We've already broken up. We're not getting married. Carter's face turned pale, his expression instantly filled with desolation as he rushed to hug me tightly, like a big dog that's been abandoned. No, I can't break up with my wife. You promised not to. Abandon me and the children. You can't leave. I was nearly suffocated by his embrace, annoyed as I hit him lightly. Let go. He buried his head in my neck, mumbling, you said no breakup. Then I'll let go, thinking it's best to pacify him for now, regardless of whether we'd break up or not. I conceded. Okay, no breakup. He finally released me, but did he move his head from my shoulder up? Please. It's ticklish. My stomach hurts. He whispered, how does your stomach hurt? I frowned, asking. He straightened up, touching his stomach with a pained expression. Just now, when you mentioned breaking up, the baby got scared and kicked my belly several times. It hurts, so you can say things like that. It'll make the baby sad, he said, taking my hand and placing it on his stomach. Looking earnestly at me, I asked him, Mr. Carter, may inquire how many months along you are? This question saw meds too. Stumped the newly minted mom. Carter, he furrowed his brows and counted on his slender fingers before answering. 2 months, elawed in disbelief and poked him in the forehead. 2 months, the baby isn't even formed yet. How could it kick your belly? Carter immediately pursed his lips, touching the spot of poked guilt, Lily, and looked away. Just then, my phone rang with a message from my advisor asking for help in the office. A hobby to leave. Stay home and don't wander off. I said as I got ready to leave. Don't. Carter's expression turned forlorn, gripping the hem of my clothes tightly, not letting go, and pleaded pitifully. Wife, can you take me with you? No. I brushed off his hand, grabbed my laptop, and pushed the door open. Make lunch yourself. Don't bother me unless it's important. A great howling followed me as I left. The advisor was in the office, but left a mountains of work for me. Just as I sat down to start, a call came in, assuming it was the advisor. I picked up without looking. Hello, wife. Carter's voice. I frowned. What's it? I miss you. I put down the phone, hovering my finger over the end call button. I say don't bother me if it's nothing important, and hung up. Before I could dive into work, the phone rang again. Annoyed, I answered. Wife, it's me. I'm hungry, he said before I could speak. There's food in the fridge. Make something yourself. I replied, I don't know how, he claimed. Then the order took out. Don't know how to do that either, he whined, sighing deeply. Fine, I'll order for you. Don't disturb me over trivial matters again. I said and hung up before he could respond, massaging my temples in frustration. Just when I was about to start writing, the phone rang again, pushing me to the brink of rage. Eastered at it as it rang persistent lie for Aminu before I finally answered through gritted teeth. Wife. Carter's voice came through, slightly breathless. This time it's serious. My patience snapped. It better be serious. Don't be mad. Wife, he whimpered, then cautiously added, I think I'm experiencing milk engorgement. Can you come check on me? It took all my power not to curse out loud. You're Amin. Carter, what milk engorgement? I roared, unable to contain my fury. It really hurts. He sounded so aggrieved. As he spoke, a picture came through on my phone. In the photo, Carter was biting the hem of his t-shirt, revealing his sculpted ABS collarbone and a beautiful jawline. His hands was on his firm pecking oral muscles, a pained expression on his face. My face flushed, my hands trembling, barely holding the phone. Well, I couldn't tell about any milk engorgement. His chest muscles were certainly larger than mine. His pitiful pleas continued over the phone. It hurts so much, I think I'm dying. Wife, I am having your baby. Can you come home and stay with me? Taking a deep breath, I chanted to myself about detachment and swift lie. Blocked him, returning home that evening. Before I even entered, I sensed a morose atmosphere. Sure enough, Carter was sulking in a corner of the sofa, looking dejected. He ran towards me with his phone, asking wife, why didn't you answer my calls? I was about to tell him I deblocked him when he suddenly threw his phone on the floor, stomping on it and blaming the bad phone for eating up all the calls from his wife. He then took my bag, looking up at me with bright, obedient eyes asking, right wife? Feeling guilty, I overted my gaze and silently removed Carter from the blacklist. After dinner, it was time to sleep. Carter promptly climbed onto my bed, curling up on my small single bed, looking utterly uncomfortable. But he didn't seems to mind an excited lie pat. Ted the tiny space beside him. Wife, come on, let's sleep. I unceremoniously kicked him and his blanket off the bed, sitting being wildered on the carpet. He was told to sleep on the sofa. Unhappy, he pouted, claiming, I'm pregnant. I can sleep on the sofa. Then I'll sleep there. I replied coldly. Carter, still unhappy, argued. Pregnant women have nightmares easily. They need their wives to sleep well. Suddenly, it glanced at him. The corners of my mouth curved into a smile. I crouched Ed down and whispered in his ear, want to sleep with me? As I lifted the hem of his shirt, circling his abs, I teased in a low voice, aren't you afraid of what I might do to you at night? What about our baby? Carter's face turned red instantly, and he gave me ashy and scared glances before obediently grabbing his blanket and heading to sleeping on the sofa. Watching his awkward retreat, I can straighten my back from laughter. This merry life continued for several days. I bossed Carter around daily, and Nina would occasionally call or visit to check in on her son's condition. I always threatened him not to reveal the truth, and he obediently complied. Today, I went out to the supermarket and dragged him along as my packing mule. On our way home, I walked ahead relaxed and eating ice cream, while Carter followed, laden with bags and pleadingly said, wife, I want some too. I skipped a big spoonful of ice cream and satisfiedly stuffed it into my mouth, dismissively saying, no pregnant women can eat cold things. A Carter's lips drooped, and he murmured in a wounded tone, but pregnant women aren't supposed to do labor either. What was that? I asked with a smile. Carter immediately looked down and said, no more, please. I continued my ice cream and sauntered on. However, upon reaching our buildings, my steps halted. A young, tall, beautiful woman stood there as If waiting for a long time, it was Julia, Carter's secretary from his company, a high-flying returnee from overseas studies, the daughter of a real estate magnate, Carter's childhood friend and neighbor, and one of the reasons for our breakup. How could you let Mr. Carter do all this? She approached us, her tone reproachful, as she reached for the bags in Carter's hands. Carter hastily avoided her touch, timidly hiding behind me. Julia paused in surprise. So it's true what Aunt Nina said. I crossed my arms and remained silent. Julia stopped beside me. Is there something you need? She asked. I know a secret about you, Julia said with a half smile. Drawing near, curious, I asked, what secret? You're pregnant, aren't you? 2 months, she claimed, her lips twisting strangely. And the child isn't your boyfriend's but someone else's. I was taken aback at first, then laughed. What makes you say that, Miss Julia? I countered. She raised her voice deliberately, looking at Carter 2 months ago, on the night of the company's celebration. You were betrayed by sleeping with Peter. I burst out laughing, so sure. Miss Julia, did you install a camera on me? Julia, smirking as if she had been prepared, pulled out a photo from her bag, waving it in front of me. You should think about what would happen if Carter and Aunt Nina saw this. It glanced at the photo, showing me supporting Peter into a huddle room. You didn't come here just to tell me this, did you? Inquired when she confirmed her intention to take Carter away for care. Fine, take him. I've been taking care of Carter for days, without any benefit. But you'll need Nina's agreement since she left him with me. I did. Julia scrutinized me before donning her sunglasses. Miss Karen, please end your relationship with Carter prompt. Lie and stop playing both sides. I'd glad to keep your secret. An nonchalant lie waved Carter home, indifferent to her warnings. That evening, Nina and Julia visited together. Karen, Julia says you and Carter broke up. Is it true? Nina sounded shocked. I served her tea and nodded. Yes. Why? Weren't you two doing well? Nina asked anxiously. Did Carter did something to you? No, I shook my head. We just weren't compatible. I meant going and honors trained. While Carter, the workaholic with a cold personality, would drive me crazy if we stayed together longer. You've been together for so long, and both his father and I really like you, Nina pleaded, holding my hand. Julia interrupted her, forcing a smile. Since both ladies have broken up with Carter, we shouldn't bother her about finding someone new. I've grown up with Carter, and given his current state, it would be better if he took care of him. Ilian back into the sofa, blowing on the tea. Silent, Nina looked at Julia with a peculiar expression, then turned to ask me if Carter had been consulted about this. Not yet, I replied, glancing towards the bedroom. He's in there. I'll tell him now. When Carter was released, he looked utterly dejected. Wife, why did you lock me up in the room? I didn't answer, but pointed at Julia. From now on, you're following her. Why? Carter was shocked, then very resistant. I doubt when too. I'm carrying our children. I can only be with you. No? I shook my head. The child do. They're carrying Julia's, not mine. Carter's face paled, a hurt expression crossing his features. You don't want me and the children anymore? I leaned against the wall, laughing. I'm not raising another woman's child. Carter tried to speak, but couldn't, looking desolate and on the verge of tears. Be good, Carter. I thought you'd take good care of our children. Julia approached, attempting to touch his face, but Carter dodged her, instinctively hiding behind me. Unfortunate lie. I was against a wall. It's late. It earned to see the guests out. You should go. Carter stood in the shadows, looking at me for a long time, before leaving with Nina. Head down. That evening, I met up with Jenny at a small tavern. So, Which man has made our Karen give up alcohol? Oh, it's him. A sexy woman approached, lightly touching my stomach. Come on. Sis, 2 months and you already know if it's a boy or a girl? I took a sip of milk laughing. I would a nephew as handsome as Carter. No way. Jenny teased. Sitting down. You sent him away. Yeah. I put down my glasses. Julia has always been eyeing him, right? I'm just doing a good deeds, Jenny. Clicked her tongue in disapproval, poking my head hard. That's Carter you're talking about. How could you push him to another woman? Have you lost your mind? What's the big deal? I don't like him. I replied nonchalantly. Besides, it's a long night full of dreams. I'm afraid the family will find out I'm pregnant and then fight over the children with me. Jenny came serious. Are you really sure about this? Yeah. Expressionless, my advisor in Australia, has decided to take me in. Dad bought me an apartment. There, I'm leaving in a couple of months. And Mom's coming with me. We'll return after the baby is born. Your parents really spoil you, even supporting your whims. Jenny knocked me again. This isn't twin cycle. Look. First of all, Carter's genes are great. Tall, handsome, high IQ. Second, I have the child without any law or marital issues. Isn't that great? Jenny sighed, shaking her head. There'll come a day I'll regret this. Ish rugged, drinking milk one glass after another. I'll worry about regret when it comes. Without Carter, I Karen am not short of men. Leaving the tavern, I felt lightheaded, suspecting I had drunk fake milk and insisted on complaining to the manager. Jenny, utterly disgusted, shoved me into the car and drove me home, collapsing on the sofa. I called out for Carter like usual. I didn't want to move. Come and carry me to bed. But the house was silent. It hit me then that I had already sent Carter away that afternoon. In the deep quiet of the night, I felt a pang of loss and made my way back to bed alone. I had thought this lonely night would tear through all pretense, making me restless over Carter, unable to sleep. Yet, to my surprise, I slept till morning, the alarm failing to wake me. That bar, definite sold fake milk. I must complain. I resolved the next day, returning from class. I noticed a moving trucks in the complex. Going upstairs, I saw the apartment below with mine bootsying. Renovations. Curiosity got the better of me, and as I peeked inside, I caught sight of Carter's face. Julia emerged from the house, greetings me with a smile. The doctor said, pregnant women should stay in familiar surroundings to avoid discomfort. So, we be moved in right below you. She explained, hoping I wouldn't mind. I waved it off. Of course not. As long as your renovations don't disturb my sleep. Julia twitched Ed at the corner of her eyes and called out to Carter to greet our new neighbors. Remembering him of how she had taught him, Carter approached slowly, supporting his waist, and gave me a faint greeting, asking for my kindness in the future. Gave a half smile, nodded and headed up. In the evening, as I went out to find food, I encountered Carter and Julia. Julia offered Carter apple. Here, eat a plum. Carter turned his head away. It's cold, he said, his gaze lingering on me. Pregnant women shouldn't eat cold things. Julia retracted her hand, suggesting they head back so she could make him some lemon. Knowing he's been liking sour foods lately, I stepped aside to let them pass. Exchanging brief greetings with Julia, Carter silently followed her, looking down as we brushed past each other. I watched their departing figures coldly, thinking to myself sarcastically, after a fruitless shopping trip, I came back and drank some water, and settled down with headphones too. Steady, when I finally took them off, it was already past midnight. Stretching, I checked my phone and saw several missed calls from Carter, starting from 9 p.m. wondering why he would call. I didn't return them. While getting water, I noticed the trash was full, so I took it out, exiting the door. I was starting lead to find Carter sitting on my doorstep, curled up. "Carter, what are you doing here?" I was shocked to see him, the once stoic and cold. Mr. Carter looked on the verge of tears, saying he missed me. I asked about Julia, and he said she was asleep, and he had sneaked out. He told him to go back so she wouldn't worry, but he resisted, saying he was hungry. Julia hadn't made him dinner. He mentioned she did, but he couldn't eat because his teeth hurt from eating too many lemons. Seeing Carter's innocent eyes, I suppressed my irritation, wondering if he was mocking me, if he wasn't so foolish. He asked if I could make him something to eat, tugging at my sleeve. After a moment's assessment, I let him in to make some pasta. Just as I served it, someone knocked. "Who is it?" I asked, wiping my hands. "It's me." Julia came the reply from outside. He hesitated, then opened the door. Julia walked in, scanning the room until she saw Carter sitting at the dining table, ready to eat. Apologizing for the late disturbance, she claimed Carter and insisted on taking him back home, showing no real apologies. Carter looked to me for help. Shaking his head, I stood by the door, arms crossed, as Julia firmly took Carter away. The door slammed edged shut behind them. I shifted my gaze slowly from the door to the table, where 2 plates of pasta lay untouched, still steaming. He ate Carter's portion and stored the leftovers in the fridge to warm up for breakfast. Being pregnant, I've been feeling very tired lately, and the morning sickness has been severe, so I decided to move in with my mom for a few days. The next day, as I finished packing, someone knocked, opening the door. A handsome tall man walked in, asking softly if I had finished packing. "Perfect timing," I said, stretching and rubbing my neck. "Peter, could you help me carry these downstairs?" Peter rolled up his sleeves with a smile. As I was about to close the door, I suddenly noticed someone standing at the bottom of the stairs. It was Carter, clutching a bag of snacks I used to love, his lips tightly pressed, standing silently. I didn't bother greeting him and closed the door. Peter's car was parked downstairs. As we were about to leave, he suddenly looked into the rearview mirror. "Isn't that Mr. Carter? What is he doing there?" He looked back to see Carter standing under a tree, watching our car. The snack bag crumpled in his hands, his face screaming of misery and a pleas for consolation. I haven't seen him in a long time. I'll go say hi. There's also the matter of renewing the contract to discuss with him, Peter said, reaching for his seatbelt. "Forget it," I interjected. "It's useless now. He can hardly make out the letters on the contract." Peter looked confused but decided against it and drove me to my mother's villa. Arriving at my mom's villa, the waiting housekeeper helped with the luggage. Peter turned the car around and rolled down the window. "We'll go shopping at the maternity store at 5 p.m. I'll wait for you here, okay?" In nodded. Pregnancy has gradually made me feel more uncomfortable, and I wanted to buy some pregnancy-specific furniture and accessories. After a moment's hesitation, Peter asked, "What are you going to do there?" Thinking it best to keep it to as few people as possible, I replied, "A friend of mine is pregnant. I went to buy her gifts." Peter nodded in understanding. "Okay, see you at 5. At the maternity store at 5:30 p.m. The sales assistant enthusiastically showed me products suitable for someone 2 months into their pregnancy. Peter, who followed behind, was charmed by the assortment of baby clothes, wishing aloud for a child of his own. As I teased him about needing to put in more effort, Carter's voice, full of sorrow and pity, suddenly called out, "Wife." Surprised, I turned to see him. I was aspirated by his persistence. As curious glances fell on me, I felt an overwhelming sense of embarrassment, and sharp lie told him, "Shut up, who's your wife? Don't call me that." Yet, Carter clung to my sleeve, pleading not to be abandoned and promising to be had better. Peter was taken aback, and passers-by began to gather, recognizing me a flurry of Carter and sparking speculation and gossip about us. Feelings mortified, and with Carter refusing to let go of my sleeve, I barely managed to smile and firmly told him he had mistaken me for someone else. Carter cried out, insisting he had not made any mistakes and that I was indeed his wife. Before things could escalate further, I covered his mouth and dragged him to the staircase, pacing back and forth in the stairwell with Carter cowering in a corner. I demanded to know how he had followed me, took a taxi. He admitted honestly. Annoyed, I poked his forehead, accusing him of stalking. Carter looked hurt and defensive, like claimed I was the one who left with that bad man. I retorted that it was none of his business. Tears welled up in Carter's eyes as he cried about being abandoned despite being pregnant with our child. Frustrated, I insisted the child was Julia's, not mine. Carter vehemently denied it, claiming a hard connection with the baby who supposedly told him Julia was not his mother. Exasperated, I questioned the feasibility of such a connection with a pillow, suggesting a cotton fields might have been moored, a PT place for finding the baby. Shrill mother, Carter looking pitiful, begged me to take him back home. I refused, agitated, and asked for Julia's number to call her to pick him up. Carter's share was a mess. His eyes are red and swollen. Why don't you want me? Is it because of that bad person outside? He pointed towards the door, his voice filled with despair. I'm willing to have your children. Is he willing to? Wiping away his tears, Carter got up from the ground. His voice is firm and resolute. Okay, I understand. I'll go tell him right now that I'm carrying your biological child. If he wants to be with you, he'll have to step over our dead bodies. I was shaking with anger. Carter, come back here. Unable to bear it any longer, I grabbed him and pinched his arm in frustration. What nonsense are you talking about? Peter is my brother in Allah. At the mention of brother in Allah, Carter froze, then suddenly turned and hugged me tightly, burying his head in my neck and sobbing softly. I knew my wife was the best. You wouldn't leave me for someone else. Please don't leave me. I really love you so much. I rolled my eyes, intending to push him away, but suddenly my heart began to race, as if the little life inside me suddenly felt the presence of its father and got excited. I was stunned, and my hands, which had been stiff, ended up softly resting on his waist. Unexpected lie. I became a hot topic on social media that evening. Someone had taken a video of me and Carter at the maternity store and posted it online. In no time, it was shared millions of times. In the video, Carter was tugging at my sleeve, calling me wife in a sticky and whiny manner, a stark contrast to his usual cold and domineering CEO image. The comment section was flooded with speculation about sister and puppy's love literature, with people excitedly calling for us to get married immediately. Amidst this, someone asked about Karen, wondering how a poor graduate student with the background deserved to be Carter's wife. Others defended me, pointing out a photo from a billionaire's daughter's birthday party last year, suggesting my background was as simple as it. See meta reading through these comments. I was worried that my wealthy heiress identity would be exposed, along with the complications of my current situation. Soon, my family chat exploded with messages. Father suggested not hiding my identity anymore, mentioning plans to transfer properties and money under my name and proposing to Carter's family. My mother was already planning the wedding. Concerned about how a pregnancy would affect the wedding dress fit and eager for grandchildren, my families even started suggesting baby names, ignoring my attempts to say that Carter and I had broken up. As I lay in bed, phone cast aside, I touched my belly, torn about the decision to have the baby without telling Carter. I wondered if this choice was right and if my child would resent growing up without a father. Yet, I hoped Ed Carter would return to his normal self one day. Did he hobby to marry someone I didn't love for the sake of my child? If only Carter could remain this foolish forever, I mused, burying my turmoil under the covers and silently wishing I could marry him and take care of him. Just then, Carter's phone call came through. "Wife," he started, his voice filled with grievances. "Julia kicked me out. Have now here to go. Could you please open the door and take in both me and the children?" Hesitating for a moment, I got out of bed, slipped into my slippers, and opened the door. Carter cautiously stepped inside, calling out wife in an ingratiating tone. I looked him up and down. "Why did Julia kick you out?" I asked. He replied, "Now everyone knows that you were pregnant with my child." Carter's voice broke, almost crying as he continued. He also said that no one else would want me now, that no one would want Aman, who got another woman pregnant. His pitiful state made me feel both sympathetic and amused, somehow making me no longer angry at him. I waved him in dismissively. Carter's eyes lit up, and he nodded obediently, his tail solemnly wagging behind him. "Thank you, wife," he said as he placed his belongings, sat down on the table, and looked up at me attentively. Where should I sleep tonight? His foolish appearance only added to my confusion. "Go to the bathroom and sleep. You stink. Take a shower," I said, trying to maintain my composure. Carter, shocked, sniffed at himself and scurried off to the shower, like a child who had done something wrong. After hearing the door closed, I collapsed onto the sofa, staring at the ceiling, pondering over how I would manage in the future. Just as I was worrying, the phone on the table vibrated. It was Carter's phone. Glancing at it, I was started led and quickly grabbed the phone. A notification popped up from Julius Further, apologizing and begging for forgiveness for coveting and slandering Karen. The message confessed to playing along with the drama from the night Carter was taken away by his aunt until now, pleading to be let go to avoid his family's company going bankrupt. My heart raced as the unlocked phone using the password that was a combination of his birthday and mine. And read the messages. It up D back, questioning the quality of his performance. Julius further confessed to wanting to spread rumors about Karen to marry Carter while he was vulnerable. Not real easy, and Carter was pretending. As he apologized profuse lie, sounds of items dropping from the bathroom reached me. Lifting my eyelids, I saw Carter standing there shirtless, with shampoo spilled all over the floor. Leaning back on the sofa, I tossed the phone onto the table and met his gaze, demanding an explanation. After a moment of silence, Carter looked up with the familiar demeanor of CEO Carter. He asked, without a word, whether he should kneel on the keyboard while explaining. I generously allowed him to stand. Carter rubbed his temples and began to confess. "Karen, 2 nights after you broke up with me, a friend from the hospital told me you were pregnant and planned to got an abortion. That night, I had a nightmare. First, I dreamed of you holding a pregnancy test, squatting on the ground crying, saying it S all over. My mom will definitely kill me. Then, I dreamed of a bloody children squatting in your belly, crying it S all over. My mom would definitely kill me. And then, I was started led awake, accidentally falling to the ground and indeed, injuring my head. He looked up at me. At that time, I was lying to you. He also didn't expect to become like that. It took a sip of tea. So why did you lie to me afterwards? I didn't want to break up with you, but I couldn't think of a way to keep you. Seeing that you see meds to like the foolish me, I just went with it and pretended. Julia's appearance was unexpected. I didn't, knowing she felt that way about me before. But seeing how indifferent you were to me at that time, I came up with bad ideas to use her to provoke you. I slammed the cup down on the table. Continue confessing. Carter hung his head, not losing his composure, and continued calm lie. Then Peter appeared, and I was jealous every day, so much that I couldn't sleep. After all, 2 months ago at the company's celebration, I saw you helping him, who was drunk, to his room. That night, I was also drunk and was upset by that scene. So, I'm sorry, I really didn't. Knew he was family. It were led my hair, not saying anything. Lost in thought, if I remember correctly. That night, I was the one who took charge and forced Carter. In any case, I can't be without you and the children. Carter concluded, his voice earnest. Lately, I've been reflecting and thinking. I admit I haven't been a good boyfriend in the past. Please, give me another chance, if you can. Teeth all in love with me again. I will respect all your decisions. My heart was a mix of emotions, my heartbeat racing. All right, I said, considering the defending Carter has shown a good attitude in admitting his mistakes. This judge has decided to give you another chance. To make amends, you're on probation for months. If I'm satisfied after this period, your punishment will be revoked. Any objections? None. Carter smiled, leaning in to nibble on my ear. Thank you for being lenient. Wife? Who's your wife? I raised my foot to kick him. Stop. Stop, you Ray pregnant. Carter caught my ankle. A unsuspicious lie, reaching out to touch his forehead. How come this hasn't healed yet? Carter laughed, extending his arms to pull me into his embrace. I mean, you shouldn't get upset because you're pregnant. It pulled his hand to my stomach. Feel it? Really? Carter was delighted yet cautious. Really? A smirk Ed, then frowned at his forehead. Carefully, Carter touched my belly, treating it like the most precious treasure in the world, and joyfully exclaimed, "This is our child." Elad. Idiot. Carter held my hand, his eyes closed, gently nuzzling it. I really love you, Carter. I turned my face away, hot illy humming from an angle Carter couldn't see. I curved my lips into his smiles. I had a skirt. Perhaps when I would tell him one day, I had already realized he was pretending. After all, which fool would sneak out in the middle of the night to attend video meetings? But I didn't expose him. It was N.T. just about giving him a chance. It was about giving myself one too. Carter, I love you too. That's also true.